And welcome back. One of the items that we looked at in our previous video that we talked about doing was researching if we could replace these factory springs that are referred to as ones having the metal guard or shield around them with a newer spring, what they call a beehive spring, that doesn't have the guard. Mainly because these have 190 plus thousand miles on them. Again, not to say that they couldn't go another 190,000 or plus, but you know, we're in here, we're building up, it's just peace of mind. Well, when I was researching springs, there was this spring came up as a replacement with a part number, and also this spring kit, which has this spring here, also came up as a valid replacement. 457. More importantly, this part number you see here, which is a kit, comes with this beehive spring, as they call it, and this 1mm shim. The factory installed shim here that we took off our 5.7 heads is a 2mm shim. And this is what Chrysler refers to as a dampered spring. And this kit is a damperless spring. This kit also comes with the following note you see here. The valve spring in this kit is damperless and utilizes a 1mm spring seat. Ensure removal of the 2mm spring seat and replace it with a 1mm seat. So what they want you to do if you're going to use this upgraded spring is to take this, obviously throw it to the curb, take that off the bottom of the spring seat, that's 2mm shim, replace it with this 1mm, and then you could use this accompanied spring. Now the nice thing about this coming up as a spring also that fits a 2016 6.4, because if you remember when we tore our 6.4 cylinder heads down off of our 2016, we kept all the springs and the 1mm spring seats that were already on those heads when we upgraded to different springs. So if we take, this is the spring that comes in the upgrade kit, we're going to put it on its seat, and then we're going to take one of the springs we saved from doing our upgrade, put it on its spring seat, and if we just rotate that one a little bit so they kind of line up a little bit better, you can see that those springs are pretty much the exact same size. Same type of coil windings, spacings, pink color code here, pink color code here. I'm not sure what the additional green color code means, but that to me tells me that since this spring is sold as a default spring option for a 6.4 and a 5.7, that we should be able to take all of our 1mm shims we saved from our 6.4 and our springs from our 6.4 and install them in our 5.7 heads when we go to do the build-up. So once again, just to kind of show you that. There we go. So again, 2mm shim, the replacement's a 1. And again, this is what they call a dampered spring versus a undampered spring. Now, there is an installed spring height, and I have to double check this, but I believe for a 5.7 head, the installed spring height is 1.99 inches. So when we get one of these installed, again with the saved spring, we'll do a measurement of that spring height when it's on the head and verify that it is the correct spring height. Since we have one that we know is good, we can also install this temporarily onto one valve in the head and do a measurement and compare it with one of the ones that we're saving. Now, as far as these shims, to verify that was a 2mm shim, I just used a dial caliper that you see here. We've used this in our 6.4 video when we were sizing out the correct shims to put under the intake and the exhaust. It does come back as the appropriate measurement. That is in fact a 2mm shim, and these both are in fact a 1mm shim. But then again, there's the part number in case you're doing work on a 5.7 head and you've got these older springs and you want to upgrade to the newer revision beehive spring. That's the kit there. And again, the kit will come with this note about switching the shim out. It'll also come with the spring itself and obviously the shim. The other thing I wanted to show you was that you can see we've started work on cleaning one of our cylinder heads here. This is the driver cylinder head. That's the passenger one, but that's kind of a shot of what it looked like before we cleaned it. We got a little bit more work yet to do on this one. You can see a couple of spots in here we just need to go over. It's not too critical. It's 1,000 times better than what it was. Now there's a couple areas in here that look like it's maybe sealant or dirt. It's not. It's just the electrolysis, because there's a couple of blind coolant passages in the block that these line up with, that the coolant doesn't go anywhere, it just kind of sits there. And over time, even on the non-blind passages, it's actually pitted around these water jackets. And that's, again, it's just electrolysis from the coolant. And of course, you know, this being a, and believe it or not, even though your engine is grounded and negative, it is a path back to ground that some devices will take. So, you know, your engine does carry a little bit, it does carry an electrical charge. So you couple that with coolant, and presto, electrolysis takes place, and it just kind of leads to a little bit of pitting around the edges of the water jacket that you see here. It's perfectly normal. And when you're cleaning your cylinder heads up, you know, unless you were to take these to a machine shop and let a machinist go over this and take, you know, 1/1000th or 2/1000th of an inch off and get it to look like a mirror, if you're doing this by hand, which I am, you know, you definitely don't want to scrub down on this and try to get rid of something like that, because what'll happen is you'll actually go too deep and cause a divot or a gouge into the metal, and then your seal won't seal around that area. But on the last video, I showed you that we were soaking these in WD-40 ahead of time. And I just wanted to show you that here, that I'm just going to try to take my glove, and you can see I could just take my fingernail through a glove and literally just with a little bit of pressure start to push off. You can see some old sealant coming up from the old gasket right there. There's a nice chunk of it there for you. So yeah, it does a pretty good job of just coming out here, spraying it, letting it soak, spraying it, letting it soak, and you can see it build up here. And again, just kind of take it and smear some of it back on here and continue to let it soak if you've got the time to do this, obviously. And you can see I can just take my fingernail here and so it does, again, it just does a really nice job of softening up that carbon and making these easier to clean. I took the driver side one that you see there, took it outside just like we did with our 6.4, used a little piece of red Scotch-Brite, which you can see is what Scotch-Brite considers their very fine assortment. I've also used the green stuff in the past. Took a nice big sheet like this, soaked it down with a little bit of True Fuel, which is gasoline, or aka a solvent. Gasoline is also a solvent. Soaked down the cylinder head, and just took a nice big piece and just worked it from side to side, keeping even pressure on it until we got, as you can see, a nice end result like that one over there, where, you know, you get rid of all this carbon and all this other debris and start to see the actual aluminum cylinder head underneath. So within the next couple of days, we'll do the same process to this one. We'll get it cleaned up, and then once it's cleaned up, just like on that one, I just took a couple of cans of brake clean, hosed everything down all sides to make sure that we removed any abrasive residue that may have been left behind from using this pad. And then once we had it all hosed down and clean, just kind of let it air dry. And then obviously once we get both of these done and get all the parts in, then I'll bring you back, and we'll lap the new valves into the valve seats. And again, I'll be doing that, also lapping the valves to make sure that the valve seats are clean. And also, since they're new valves, I just want that seating surface on that valve and this valve seat to kind of start to work into one another and kind of mate up a bit better. And parts have started to come in slowly in the trickle. We are getting, they are here. One of the items that did show up, and I want to show it to you here once I can find the bag. Here they are. These are our lifters. They are factory OEM lifters, MDS lifters. You can tell that 2 of them have the holes in them and 2 of them are the solid lifter. I actually found these, and I'll put a link in the description, but I actually found these on eBay, believe it or not. And the gentleman that was selling them actually had these, I think, for about $200 less than what I can find them through other online outlets for. And there were a lot of outlets that actually had one of these pieces. I think it was the front is actually on back order with a lot of companies right now. They're basically unobtainium until they come in. But again, I was able to find them on eBay. He FedEx shipped these to me, included into the price of the sale. And I did take these out and verify that these are factory lifters, because you'll notice the solid lifters do not have a hole drilled in to indicate they're the generic ones. And I did look, and you can't see it on the camera because it's very faint, but if you want to tell of whether or not you have a factory Mopar lifter on the newer lifters, you'll see the part number actually etched into this little gray area here. And these have that. So I can confirm that they are a factory lifter. I'm very, very pleased with these. You may not be able to see this on camera, but this is the newer revision of these lifters that have been out for a few years now. A lot of people call these solid lifters, the newer ones, the quote-unquote Hellcat lifters. They're not technically a quote-unquote Hellcat lifter. What they are a solid lifter, and it is a newer revision of this lifter. Because when you look at these on the side, you can actually see a much, at least in my opinion, a much thicker and bigger looking needle bearing in the heads of these lifters than what they look like from the original ones we took out. But again, we're going to go factory back on this setup, which means we're going to utilize MDS lifters. So you're going to have a set of MDS lifters and a set of non-MDS lifters per quadrant. And there are, 4 sets of 4 in here, basically. And I think that covers it for this video. It's just going to be kind of a short and sweet, just to let you know that work is progressing. We're just waiting for parts to continue to trickle in at this point. And then once we start going to build things up, we'll get everything built. As I stated earlier, we are going back to stock. We're going to keep this truck stock. I know a lot of individuals who may be watching these videos might look at it and go, oh, it's a perfect opportunity, to delete the MDS or go with a more aggressive cam. But one thing you got to understand is, again, this truck is being given away to a family member who can use it up in a much, much more northern area of the U.S. than I'm in. So that truck has to be able to be mechanically supported, meaning if it develops an issue and you have to take it to a Chrysler mechanic or an independent mechanic, keeping it original as possible is actually key to being able to get service work done. Because if you drop something off that's had a custom tune or a custom cam or a custom valve screen arrangements, then whoever supports that vehicle has to A, know what you've done to it, and B, be able to support those custom changes versus what it is if it's just something that is still 100% stock. So that's the reason why we're going with a stock build on this truck, or keeping everything as stock as we can. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. You know, changing out these springs deviates from the original build that this truck would have been from a 2009 from the factory, but we're just taking out one stock version of a spring and replacing it with another stock version of a spring, and it's a viable choice for a 5.7. Again, updated spring, but it also keeps it stock at the same time. So with that being said, that's enough rambling. Just wanted to show you a little bit of progress here. Again, it's kind of what they're going to look like after, and that's a little bit of what they look like before. But with that being said, I'll let you go, wrap it up at this point, and I'll bring you back for the next one. Thank you much.